We begin today the Gemara on Samech Tes Samech Beis, right after the Mishnah, Tanu Rabbanon. It said in the Mishnah, Umafriz al Sadeyu, Ve'enu Chayshish Mishum Ribis. When a person is leasing a property, so you're able to inflate the price of this lease, and there's no issue of ribis. So here the Gemara will spell out exactly what the Mishnah is talking about. Tanu Rabbanon, we learned in a Braisa that explains this. Mafriz al Sadeyu, you can inflate the price of the lease, and you're not concerned about Mishum Ribis, that this is going to be an issue of Ribis. So Ketzad, what's the case here? A person is leasing a property from his friend, Basara Kurim Chitim Lashana. And the deal is here that he's going to provide for him a certain set amount of the produce of the wheat from the field, 10 kur of wheat per year. Usually in Gemara, this is what's called a chaycher. You have a person that is called a oris. A oris is a sharecropper, where he gets a certain share of the actual produce that the field produces that year. Here, the deal is the opposite. He takes everything for himself. And then there's a certain set amount, like it says here, asara kurim, that he's going to give to the owner of the field. So that's basically like you're leasing the property. You like have the ownership over it. Elama, you're giving the owner a certain set amount. 10 kur of chitim for the year. That's the lease. But now what happens? The person leasing the property tells the owner, Tenli Masayim Zuz, additionally, I want you to lend me 200 Zuz, and I'll use the money that you're giving me to take care of the property. I have to fertilize it, I have to plant, I have to reap, all the work that has to be done in the field. I need money to be able to invest into the property. And then he tells him, because you're lending me money, so I'm going to add now to the payment of the lease, I'm going to pay you 12 kor for the year. So on this, the Mishnah said, mutter, this is allowed. So even though he's borrowing money here, and because of this, he ends up paying him back a more expensive price for the lease. Instead of 10, he's paying him back 12. And he's paying him back also the entire loan. He borrowed from him, how much, what did it say over here? He borrowed from him 200 zuz, and he's paying him back the 200 zuz, but he's also paying a more expensive price on the whole lease right now. So you think that this is ribis, because he's paying back the loan, and because of the loan, he has to now pay a more expensive price for the whole lease. On that, the Mishnah says it's not a problem. What's the reason it's not a problem? So Rashi explains, because when you're getting this loan on this property, you're getting the loan in order to invest in the property itself, to fertilize and so on. So it's as if you're getting from this person a better quality property. If you got from him the property without the loan, so you got from him a property that's on a lower quality, so for that you pay 10 kor of chitin for the year. When he's additionally lending you money to invest in this property itself, it's like he gave you a better quality property. For a better quality property, the lease has a different value. So you have to pay for the lease 12 kor of chitin plus the 200 zuz that you borrowed. So it's not considered to be ribis. It's just considered to be a payment for a higher quality property.
He didn't give you a high quality property.
Because that money that he's lending you, you're investing it in the actual property itself. It's not just a loan for you to do something else. It's an investment in the property itself. So it's like he gave you this better quality property, and therefore now whatever you're giving him back is a payment for that better quality.
Yeah, but who's doing the work?
It doesn't make a difference. It's a lease and a chanami. Avol, however, ein mafriz, you can't do this kind of thing. You can't inflate the price of a lease, loyal chanus, not if it's a store. If you're renting from someone a storefront to be able to sell your fruits there, and veloyal sfina, or not for a boat that you're renting from someone to deliver things. So if you're going to if you try to do the same thing over there, and you're going to tell the person that's renting you the store that besides the rental of the store, I want you also to lend me money, and then I'll pay for the lease of the store at a higher price. Over here, if you pay a higher price, it's going to be ribis. Why? Because the loan that you're getting from him, you're not investing it in the quality of the store itself. When you invest it in the quality of the property itself, then you could say that you're getting now a better property for the lease. So therefore, whatever higher price you're paying here is all for the better property you got. But by a loan for what you're going to sell in a store, that's a loan that you're getting that's not connected to the property, to the quality of the property itself. So over there, if you're paying a higher price for the lease, it's actually ribis. You're paying back more than the loan that you got. So there, it's not going to be allowed. But now the Gemara says, not necessarily. There is a case where it could be allowed. Sometimes shemafriz al chanus. that sometimes you could inflate the price even regarding a store where he's giving you the loan, and because of this, the price of the lease of the store is going to be higher, and it's not going to be an issue of ribis, lotzu batsura. And that's if you're using the money that you're borrowing from him to design the store, to fix up the store, to make it a nice place. Or sfina, if you're renting a boat from him, lasisla iskaria, you need the money for the boat to make a better sail for it. The boat should be a better quality, so you should be able to deliver better and quicker. And the Gemara explains, chanos, lots of batsursa, by a store, when you're using the loan that you're getting from the owner of the store for this lease. So you're making sursa, you're making designs and pictures or whatever it is, you're making the store a nicer place. The tzava ba'inchi. This brings people to come, more customers into the store, to run, to want to be here in such a nice, beautiful store. So if so, v'have agre tvei. So you're gonna be able to make more money here to sell in this store. But the point is, you're improving the quality of the actual store itself. So just like by the property, you're getting a better property. So therefore, you can inflate the price of the lease. And also by a sfina, lasis law iskaria, by the boat, to make for it a better sail, even the shapire iskaria, because it has a better sail and this boat is going to go quicker. So then tvei, so the agre tvei. So then you're going to have more customers that are going to come and use you as the one that ship their items. So therefore, you're investing in the boat itself. If you're getting a better boat, so if you inflate the price of the lease, it's not an issue of ribis. Okay, now the Gemara discusses another subject when you get to renting a boat. But it's not only regarding a boat, but it's regarding any rental. So the Gemara starts off like this. Sfinta, when a person rents a boat. So Amar Rav says about this, agra upagra, that you rent a boat, and you're paying a price for the rental, and also pagra. Pagra means you take responsibility. That if the boat will break, any oinus that happens while you're riding the boat, you're going to reimburse, you're going to pay for to the owner for the damage that happened. And there's no issue with this. There's no issue of ribis here. Okay, now the point that we're going to see here, the Gemara is going to explain, usually what's the difference between a rental, when you rent an item or when you borrow an item? What's the difference? Usually when you borrow, so it's your responsibility, when you borrow, to return the item to the owner no matter what happens to it. Just like every loan, you borrow money, if there's a loss, if there's an oinus, you invested the money, whatever happened, doesn't make a difference. A borrower has to give back the money to the owner regardless. That's the responsibility of the loiveh. By a rental is different. A seicher, you're not chayav for an oinus. A seicher, you're chayav for gneve v'aveda. You're chayav if you're negligent with it. But if an oinus happens, or while you work with it, it breaks, so then you just return it to the owner and you're not responsible. Okay, so now when it comes, so the isser of ribis is only regarding a loan. There's no isser of ribis regarding a rental. So usually you would think like this. How do you define the difference when you take an item from someone? When do you say that it's a loan, and when do you say that it's a rental? If you're taking it and the deal is that no matter what, you have to reimburse and give back this item itself if it breaks to the owner, so then it's a loan. So in such a case, if you're paying for it, that means that you got a loan, and additionally you're paying to the owner for using it, so that's ribis. But if you got it and you're not taking responsibility for an oinus, so then it's a rental. I'm using it, I'm a renter, and for an oinus I'm not responsible because I'm not a borrower, I'm just a renter. And then if I'm paying for the rent, so that's just a rental. So then there's no issue of ribis. That's what this Gemara discusses here. So Rav is saying that when a person is renting a boat, even though he's taking responsibility for any damages that will happen to this boat, that he's going to return it to the owner, nevertheless, you pay rent for this, there's no issue of ribis. That's what Rav said. So now on this, Amrulei Rav Kahana Ravasi, said Rav Kahana, and Ravasi said L'Rav, they asked him on this, how could he say this? I agre loy pagra. If he's paying for the rent, so then you can't say that he's going to be responsible for any oinus that happens. Because if he's responsible for any oinus, then this is really a loan. So what does it mean that he's paying rent? That means that he's paying a premium here on a loan. This is ribis. I pagre loy agre. And if he's responsible for the breakage, for any damage that happens, so then he shouldn't be paying any rent. Because again, that's ribis. So when Rav heard this question, Shosik Rav was quiet, he didn't answer. Rav Sheshes said about this, my time is Shosik Rav. Why was Rav quiet? L'shmiele hodetanya, did Rav not hear what it says in a Braisa that would answer this question? Now the Braisa explains like this. Even though it was said, and we're going to learn this soon in the next Mishnah on Daf Ayin, you're not allowed to receive an investment from a Yid where the deal of the investment is that any loss that happens in this investment is totally the responsibility of the investor. This is connected to the Gemara that we were learning before over here about an investment where you have a financer that's giving you money, and then you have the person which is the investor. If the deal is that the investor has the full responsibility to give back the principal to the financer, regardless of whether the investment makes profit or there's a loss, doesn't make a difference. He has the responsibility to give it back. What that means is that he's receiving this money like with a loan. Like a loan, where you have to give back the money regardless of what happens. If that's the case, so then what happens if there's a profit here? You're giving back the principal plus the profit, so there's an issue of ribis. This is what's called tzoim barzel. The expression of tzoim barzel means when you give someone money for an investment and it's iron. Iron means that you know you're not going to lose any money on this because you deal with him is no matter what, you have to give me back the principal. And Rashi says it's called tzoim barzel because in those times, investment very often wasn't with money, but most times it was actually with the cattle that they had, the sheep, that you would give it to a worker that would raise and fatten the animals for you, and then you would share the profits between the investor and the financer. But again, the point of here is that the Brisa starts off saying that you can't give anything of value, whether money, whether it's signed to someone with this deal that we're going to share the profits, but you, the investor, has to take the full responsibility for any losses that happens. Because then it's a loan, and then there's the issue of ribis here. But from a guy, you are allowed to receive such a kind of investment because, as we'll see later there, the Mishnah will say that regarding a guy, there's no issue of lending him or borrowing ribis from him. However, it was said, Hasham para lachaveda, a person that assesses the value of a cow, and he gives it to his friend to work, to fatten this cow, and then they're going to split the profits of this. And the worker tells the owner of the cow, that I assess the value of your cow to be 30 dinar, and I will give you a sela for every chaydesh that you're allowing me to use this cow for myself. So this is actually a case here where the person is using this cow for himself. He's taking the cow from this person. He's basically renting this cow. So it's not really a case of investment. That's what Rashi explains there. This person is renting this cow to use it for himself, to plow with it. And he's going to pay a sela for every month. But he's taking responsibility. It says that if whatever happens to the cow, any inus, no matter what happens, I'm going to pay you 30 dinar for the value of the cow. So then it's mutter. This is allowed. Why is it allowed? So the Brisa concludes, Lefi shaloi asa domim, because he did not assess the value of the cow to pay back for it for whatever inus happens. So the Gemara right away clarifies what this means, because the Brisa just said that he did assess. In fact, the Gemara v'lo yasa. You're telling me that he did not assess the value of the cow, and therefore this is allowed to be done. Again, so let me just again to clarify the point that's what's going on over here. When you take a cow, if it was just a rental, so then if this cow in the middle of the work just dies, or if any inus happens, you shouldn't be responsible for that, right? Because this is just a rental. But if it's a loan, so then you're taking responsibility that I'm going to return to you the cow no matter what. That's called that's a halva or she'ela. You're borrowing this cow. So over here, he assessed and said that this cow is worth 30 dinar, and I'm going to give it back to you, that 30 dinar, that value of 30 dinar no matter what. That sounds like a loan. That you're getting the cow, and I'm going to give you back, even if I don't give you back the cow itself, I'm going to give you back the value of the cow, 30 dinar. And in addition, he's also being charged a rental price. So that's the mamish the union of ribis. So how is this allowed? What's the Brisa saying? Rav Sheshes explains that no, true, he took upon himself that if the cow dies, that he's going to pay back the amount of 30 dinar, but he didn't take upon himself to reimburse, to give back to the owner the value of this cow, even if it doesn't die. But what happens if the value of the cow, the market price of the value of the cow goes down? When you got it, it was worth 30 dinar. Now, by the time it comes to return it, it's only worth 20 dinar. Did this person take upon himself that I'm going to give you back the original value of the cow, 30 dinar? No. If it dies, that he took upon himself, that he's going to give back the value of 30 dinar. But if the market value goes down, which is what the Gemara later calls zula, if the value of it goes down, did you take that responsibility to return to him? No. So therefore, it's not considered to be like a loan. When it comes to a loan, when you borrow an item from someone, you have to return that item itself for its full value for what it is. And that includes any damage that happens to it, any oinus, and also if the price of the market price of it goes down, you also have to return it to him. Over here, because you didn't take upon yourself that the zula, when it's still alive, if the market value goes down, to return to him, it's not considered to be a loan. It's considered to be a rental. And therefore, the fact that you're being charged rent on this is rent for a rental. It's not ribis for a loan. So therefore, this is the answer for Rav as well regarding the boat over here. The fact that you accepted upon yourself the pagro, that's what the Gemara calls it, the pagro of the boat, the damage of the boat, doesn't turn it into a loan. Because you didn't accept upon yourself anything of the value of the boat, if it goes down, that you're going to reimburse the owner for that. You just took upon yourself this detail. The damage of the boat, that I'll take care of for you. So it's still defined as a rental, and therefore you could charge rent for this. So the Gemara...
What's the difference between that and mafras? Mafras also, he's making sure that he makes the item better.
I don't know, but it's like a mafras is a different thing, because over there you're investing in the boat itself. It's a different thing. It's not really...
But I rented a house, and you can tell me that if the guy...
It's a different case. I don't see the connection. Okay, 1 second. Amar Rav Papa. Rav Papa is now paskins and says based on this, Hilchase, the halacha is, Sfina, when it comes to a boat, like Rav said, Agra upagra, you can charge rent on it, even if the renter is taking upon himself responsibility that any damage that happens, I'll pay back. It doesn't make a difference. It's still considered to be a rental, like the Gemara just explained. And then he said, V'nagu, b'nei kufra, and this was the custom of the people that are called b'nei kufra. Rashi says that these are the people that are boat owners, and they deal with the tar or with the pitch that they use to fix their boats all the time. That's why they were called b'nei kufra. So their custom was agra b'shas meshiche. When you rented the boat from them, they charge you a rental, and then pagra b'shas shvire. If the boat broke while you were using it, it was your responsibility to pay for this boat. So even though you're taking responsibility for that, it's still not considered to be a loan. It's considered to be a rental, and they can charge you rent for this. So the Gemara clarifies what this means. That v'nogu b'nei kufra, this was the minig of the b'nei kufra. Otu b'minhag talya milsa. What does this mean? Because this was their minig, therefore this is what we do. I mean, if this is not allowed, it's not allowed. What does it mean that they were noyig this way, that they did it this way? So the Gemara explains, no, mishum de masnit tanya, because we had the braisa, and the braisa said the halacha that this is allowed. As the Gemara explained before, because the renter is not taking full responsibility to reimburse the boat to the owner. If the boat is still here and just the price, the value of it goes down, then you're not going to reimburse the difference of that price. So therefore it's not defined as a loan, and therefore minhage. Therefore this is the minig to do this way. The Gemara brings another halacha that will connect back to this concept. Omer Rav Onan, Omer Shmuel, Mashal Yisaimim, money of Yisaimim, Mutal al Vaisam Beribis. You're allowed to use that money to lend to people, even with ribis. So Amalei, Rav Nachman says, what's going on over here? Mishum de Yasmininu, because they're Yisaimim, we're talking over here about Yisaimim, that are Ketanim. So seemingly what the Gemara is trying to say is, you had these Yisaimim Ketanim, who's going to take care of them? How are they going to make any money? So what do? Take their money, lend it to people with an interest, and then they'll have an income. But the Gemara asks, how could you do that? Because they're Yisayim, so Safinu Lahu Yisura, we can feed them a Isser, we'll take their money, and they should lend the money, it should be lent to people for ribis. And furthermore, he said, Yasmi the Achli, the Lav did who? Yisayim, that through ribis, go and charge and eat from someone, something that's not theirs, let them go after the one that left them here as Yisayim, their father that passed away, they'll follow him as well. So what does it mean that Rav Onan said in the name of Shmuel that there is an inyan of ribis, that the Yisayim could lend their money for ribis? Okay, so the Taisus over here says that besides the question the Gemara asks, the Gemara could have also asked that the borrowers, the Isra of ribis is not only on the lender, the Isra of ribis is also on the one that borrows the ribis. So even if you're going to say that for the Yisayim, they're allowed to lend money with ribis, what's with the borrowers? Are they allowed to borrow money from them with ribis? Okay, so Taisus explains, the Gemara could have asked that. Okay. Let's see now. The Gemara says, Amalei. So Rav Nachman says to Rav Anan, Emily Izu or Eizi Gufa Dov de Eichav. Tell me, one of the pshatim of the word Izi is, tell me, my friend, tell me the story itself, what happened over here. In other words, for sure, Shmuel never said such a statement, that Yisayimim could lend money with ribbis. Something must have happened that you saw something that Shmuel did, and based on that, you concluded that Shmuel holds that Yisayimim are allowed to lend their money for ribbis. Amalei, so he said like this, Ahu Duda de B'neimar Ukve Dahave Bema Shmuel. There was this Duda, which is like a large kettle, a large copper kettle that was from the children of Mar Ukve, and they were Yisayimim Ketanim, that was by Shmuel. What did Shmuel do with this for the benefit of the Yisayimim? Takel v'yavle, he would weigh it to see exactly how much copper there is in it, and he would lend it out to people. And takel v'shakale, and then when he would receive it back, he would weigh it again to see that if it has the exact same amount of copper, or if there's any of the copper that was diminished from it. And shakel agra v'shakel pachsa. He would charge rent for this, to rent out these copper kettles, or maybe what's in this translation? I saw a cauldron. Is that how they translate over there? A cauldron. I think Rashi says kaldira. He would charge rent for this, and v'shakol pachsa. And he would also, as we see, he would charge for any damage that there was from it if it's used to cook with it. So any of the copper that gets the erosion of the copper, he would charge for that. So what does that mean? That seemingly this is ribis. Why? So here again, the Gemara brings the expression that it said on the previous Amud. I agre loy pachse. If you're charging rent, you shouldn't be charging for any damage that happens to this, because by a renter, you don't charge for this kind of thing. A renter that rents an object from you, like the Gemara said before, a renter that rents a shovel, and he uses the shovel, and the shovel gets a little bit scratched or used up. You don't charge him for that. Same thing over here. If this is a rental, you shouldn't be charging for any of the erosion or the damage that happens. And v'pachse, if you are charging for the erosion, so that means that it's like a loan. A loan is that you have to return it back in the same condition that it was before. So then lo yagra, you can't charge any rental for this. That's ribis. So the fact that Rav Anan saw that Shmuel was doing this for the benefit of these Yisayimim Ketanim, that shows that he probably holds that Yisayimim Ketanim are allowed to lend their money for ribis. Amalei, so Rav Nachman told him, no, kiha, this that Shmuel did here, afilu b'diknani namishari, even if the Yisayimim were older adults with beards, and then there's no special heter for to be able to feed the Yisayimim Ketanim, this would also be allowed. Why? Because in this case, the ha mekabli alayu chusche de nechosha, because the owner of the cauldrons, which is in this case the Yisayimim, they accept upon themselves the diminished value of this copper after it's used. And what happens? The kama, the makli, nechoshe, batzedame. When you use and cook with these copper cauldrons, what happens to it? Even the copper that remains gets more affected by the fire, it gets burnt. So what he's saying is that even though it's taka true that Shmuel would weigh it and charge them for any of the diminishing of the copper, so if so, it seems like it's a rental, but no, it's not a rental. Why? Because even the copper that remains, because it gets burnt, its value goes down. Did he charge the renters for that? For the fact that the value of the copper that remains goes down? No, he didn't charge them for that. If it was a loan, so then he would even charge them for that as well, that they have to reimburse him for the full price of what this cauldron was worth before, both the fact that some copper got eroded, and also for the diminished value of this cauldron after its usage. He didn't charge for the diminished value of the usage, so therefore it's still considered to be a rental, and therefore you can charge rent for this. There's no issue of ribis here, b'chlal. Amar Rabbe bar Shila, Amar Rav Chiste, v'amrila Amar Rabbe bar Yosef bar Chama, Amar Rav Sheshes. Ma'is shal Yisayimim, the money of Yisayimim, mutala halvaisan, you're allowed to lend it out to someone, karev l'schar, and the deal is in such a way that it's closer. The deal, it's more likely that the Yisayimim that are lending out this money are going to gain, v'rochek lehefsid, and it's less likely that they're going to have any loss. What it's talking about over here is when their money is being given to someone to invest for them. But what's the deal in the way the money is being given to someone to invest for them? That the investor takes full responsibility of any losses that could happen in the risk of this investment. It's going to be his responsibility to give back the keren to the Yisaimim, the principal of the money to the Yisaimim. So you give it to this investor, and they're going to split the profits, but the Yisaimim take no responsibility for the losses, only the investor. That's what's called karav l'schar, that it's more likely that they're going to gain, and rachik mehafsid, because whatever loss is going to be, the investor is the one that's taking responsibility. Now this is a loan. It's defined as a loan because the investor has to give back every penny of the principal back to the Yisaimim, and nevertheless they're going to make a profit on this. This kind of ribis is allowed. And Rashi explains it's not ribis minat Torah. It's only ribis midrabanan. It's only avak ribis. Why isn't it ribis minat Torah? Because the extra charge that the investor is returning besides the loan, which is the profit, is not necessarily there's going to be a profit. There's only ribis minat Torah if you charge ribis that's for sure going to be ribis. Ribis ktsutza, you set a certain amount and then you have to pay it no matter what. Over here though, you're giving it to an investor, they have to return the entire principal. It's taka alone. But whatever profit will be is not definite. So it's only possible that it'll be profit. So therefore, this is ribis midrabanan, and for the benefit of the Yisaimim, Chachamim allow this. Because these Yisaimim Katanim have no way how to feed themselves. If they're gonna just use this money, then eventually all that money is gonna get used up. Tana Rabbanan, in a brayso we learned about various different types of investments. If a person gives his money to an investor with this kind of deal that we just described, when it's totally the responsibility of the investor, so then it's basically like a loan. So in such a case, Rasha, if you're a Rasha because you're being over on the Isser of Ribis Midrabanan, as I just explained. If you give money to an investor and you do it in the exact opposite, that you tell the investor, whatever loss will be, it's going to be my responsibility, the financer's responsibility. You're not going to lose anything. I'm taking the loss all on me. Then it's not b'chlal a halva, that is. It's a pekadon. So you're basically telling him, I'm giving you this pekadon, this money that you can use to invest, but the money is really still mine. Whatever loss there will be, it's my loss. Right? And then we'll split the profits. So if a person does that, then chassid. He's a chassid, he's going lifnim mishuras adin. It's not necessary to give money to an investor with such a deal that you have to take the entire loss upon yourself. Now, if it's karev lezeh ulezeh or rachaik mizeh umizeh, zuhi midas kol adam. If you're making the investment with the investor in such a way that it's close to having a loss and a gain for you, or it's far from having a loss or a gain from you, it's equal. So then that's midas kol adam. That's the normal behavior of a person. There's a discussion on Mefarshim exactly how to describe the two details here that it says, but this is basically going back to the point that we learned before about how Chachamim instituted it, what's the usual fair way for an investment without an issue of ribis. Half of it, the investor takes responsibility for a loss, and that's defined as a milveh. Half of it, the financer takes responsibility for a loss, and therefore it's defined as a pekadon. And then they split the value of the investment, they split the profits, that is. And over here, there's no issue of ribis because you're getting the schar, your profit for the half, which is a pekadon. Okay, so this is the midas kol adam. That's the normal way you do an investment for all people. Rabbi said to Rav Yosef like this, going back to the story with Yisaimim. Hani zuzi the yasmi, the money of Yisaimim. What should we do with the money of Yisaimim, Ketanim? You want them to be able to feed themselves, and the money shouldn't get used up. So he says, what you do is, don't allow the Yisaimim to spend their money themselves. If you allow them to spend the money themselves, they're going to squander the money. Put the money into a bezdin. We give them a little bit money at a time, every day, to be able to spend the money. So Rav Yosef says to Rabbi, but if you're going to do that, so all you have is the principal, and eventually it's going to get used up. So what are you going to do then? How are they going to feed themselves? So Rabbi tells Rav Yosef, so what do you do? We find a person, we find a rich person that has broken pieces of gold. And the reason why we look for a person that has broken pieces of gold, as we'll see from the continuation of the Gemara, because we're looking for a person that's rich and has this gold in his possession, that we could be sure that the pieces of gold that he has are actually his. If a person has nice golden kalim in his possession, for all we know, it's not his. Maybe he got it from someone else as a mashkin, and one day we're going to find out that it's not his. But if a person has these broken pieces, that's not something you usually get from someone else. It's probably his. So he's a rich person. And then what we do is, V'naktinon, again, he dislay dava pricha, he has these broken pieces of gold. V'naktinon dava minei, and we take this gold from him as a mashkin for the money of the assignment that we give him. V'yavina lohuna alei, and then we give him this money of the assignment, karev l'schar v'rochik lehefsid, that he should invest the money. And what's the deal of this investment? The deal of this investment is that it should be more likely that the assignment will gain and they should not have any loss, because this rich person is taking all the responsibility that no matter what loss will happen, he will return the principal. And so then you're going to have over here, you're going to have a profit for the money of the assignment, and we'll be able to feed them for a long time. That's what you do. Aval, huh? Well, this is ribis midrabanan, correct? Like the Gemara said before, this is the ribis midrabanan, and Chachamim allow this for the sake of the assignment. But this should be done dafka with a rich person that you know that he has the ability to pay you back, and you take from him lechatchila a mashkin from his broken pieces of gold. Aval dava mesuyim, but if you find a person that has gold kalim or expensive things, but it's something specific that he has, so then loy. You're not going to trust him to give him money of the assignment to invest. Why not? Because maybe what he has is not his. Maybe it's just a pekadon, vasimare, and then the owner will come, yav simanim, he'll give simanim that it's his, and v'shakale, and he'll take it back. So then this person is not trusted to invest the money of the assignment. There's a long thesis here that explains what this means, yav simanim v'shakal. Usually when someone has an item in his possession, and someone else comes and gives simanim, that's not enough of a proof that it's his. You can't just give simanim and take something from someone. So Taisus over here says it doesn't only mean simanim, but it means that he has edim that say that this item with these simanim are mine. And if he has such edim, then you're going to have to show it to see if it's not true that these items have those simanim. That's what the Gemara means here. Okay, so the Gemara now goes on further to say, Amar Ravashi, Ravashi says, Tainach, so this is okay, if you find a person that has broken pieces of gold, so you know that he's rich and it's his, and he could be trusted to invest the money of the assignment. But well, if you don't find such a person, so what are you going to do? So then the money of the assignment should just get used up, and they're not going to have what to eat. So it has to be some other kind of eitzah, how we could invest the money of the assignment. Ravashi, so Ravashi says we could do something else. Chazin and Gavre de Mashben Nichsei. We find a person that has properties, and the properties in his possession, it's all quiet. There's no challenge on the ownership, and we know we can be sure it's his. Umehamin, he's trusted. Vishama din deiraisa, he listens to the din of Torah. V'lo mekabel shamta de rabbanon. There was never a situation where the Chacham had to place him into a shamta, into some kind of excommunication. So this is a trusted person. He's rich, and he listens to what Torah says. And we give him in Bezdin this money to invest for the assignment, and this is again like we said before. We give him the money with the deal of the investment is that it's going to be karev. So Rashi here explains regarding this case where you find a person that has all these properties and you trust him with the money of the assignment, you have to have the union of hefker bez and hefker, because usually this is ribis midrabanan, because it's rochik karev l'schar and rochik min hefsid. But over here with the koyach of hefker bez and hefker, you're able to have him do this kind of investment. Okay, so it's interesting because once Rashi says this thing of hefker bez and hefker, there's no union of ribis midrabanan here at all. The idea here, once it's hefker bez and hefker, so it's money that belongs to the bezin. So therefore, there's no issue of ribis b'chlal. That's what it comes out.
Why don't you make what you say
because it's not guaranteed enough that it's going to be a gain for them. We don't want to rely on that. We want to have a better kind of investment for them to make sure that they have money. So therefore, for the Yisayim, Chacham U'Mater. Zog Teilige Mishneh, this is the point we mentioned before already. Ein mekablim tzoyim barzel mi Yisrael. You can't accept an investment from a yid that's an investment of tzoyim barzel, where the investor takes the full responsibility, because then this is the issue of ribis, as we mipnei shehu ribis. Because if he's taking the full responsibility, then this is a loan. If it's a loan, how could you give him back part of the profit plus the payment of the loan? However, you could receive tzayin barzel, this kind of investment from a guy, and the reason is because by a guy there's no isser of ribis, and also b'chlal b'negeta guy v'loivin man or malvin oisam b'ribis. You can borrow money, you could lend money to a guy for ribis. There's no isser of ribis by a guy. V'chein b'ger toishav, the same also with a ger toishav. Ger Toshev is, there's different opinions what a Ger Toshev is, but a Ger Toshev, according to one opinion, is a guy that is fulfilling Sheva Mitzvahs B'nei Noach. So you also can borrow or lend money from him with ribis. Malvi Yisrael Ma'esav Shel Akum, Midasa Akum. A Yid could lend money of a guy that he has in his possession as a loan. So he's lending this money, Midasa Akum, that the guy is allowing you to lend out this money of his to another Yid, Avaloi Midas Yisrael, but not if it's from the Das of the Yid himself. Okay, and this is last halach, we'll see how the Gemara explains this. Okay, but now let's just see one piece here. The Gemara explains the first din of the Mishnah, that it said that you get an investment from another Yid, and this is an investment that's called Tzoim Barzel. Again, why is it called Tzoim Barzel? Because the investor takes the entire responsibility on himself for the loss of whatever will be with this investment. This is an issue of ribis, because it's defined like a loan, and therefore when you are giving it back plus half of the profit, so it's ribis, you're giving it back the loan plus profit. So the Gemara asks on this, Lememre, shall we say that what this means is the Birishuse, the Mekabel Kaime, that this kind of investment is considered to be in the Rishus of the recipient, in the Rishus of the investor. What this means is, what's the difference between a loan and a Pekadon? When you get a Pekadon from someone, that Pekadon does not belong to you at all. It belongs to the owner. You have it in your possession with certain obligations to guard it for the owner. What's a loan? A loan is a different thing. A loan is the money that I get, the item that I get. When it's mine, when it's in my possession, it's fully mine to use for myself. I can spend the money, and then later I have to give back, pay the owner for this. But while it's in my possession, it belongs to me. So if we're saying over here there's an issue of ribis, why is there an issue of ribis? Because it's a loan. You got this money or these items, whatever it is, that it's totally yours. And that's why if you're giving it back plus a charge or plus a profit that comes with it, that's going to be ribis. That's what we see from our Mishnah. So the Gemara asks on this, I'll ask you from another Mishnah in B'chayres, where it says like this, if you receive from a guy animals that you're going to work for him, and then the deal is that these animals, you're going to fatten them, you're going to raise them, and then you're going to split the animals, the profit of these animals between you and the owner, the guy. The children of these animals that give birth, you will be potter from a b'chayra. The din of b'chayr, you have to give to the kayin. The children that are born here, you're going to be potter from b'chayra. So Rashi says what this lashon means. Vladis pruturim and b'chayra means not only the animals themselves that you got from this guy, if they give birth, so because part of it belongs to the guy, or really these animals themselves actually belong to the guy. You're just a worker that's fattening these animals for the guy. These animals belong to the guy, so there's no din of b'chayre here if it belongs to a guy. Not only that, if these animals give birth, now the animals that gave birth, so half of the profits that come from these animals belongs to the yid. So let's say the animal gives birth to one behemoth, another behemoth. The veladis that are born is your profit. The yid, that's the worker, gets them for himself. Even these vladas that then give birth, a second generation we're talking about over here, the vladas give birth to a b'chayra, still it's going to be potter from b'chayra. So the Gemara understands now why is it potter from b'chayra? Because these animals all still belong to the guy. It's not yours. And it says it clearly, we're talking about Tzoim Barzel, meaning even though this is a case where the Yid that's working with these animals took full responsibility that he's going to give back to the guy, the owner, whatever it is, the value of these animals, it doesn't matter. It still belongs to the guy. That's a contradiction to what it said in our Mishnah, that when you get an investment and you're returning it to the owner, you take full responsibility to return it to the owner. It's a loan, and it belongs to you, and you're just returning a loan, and therefore there's an issue of ribis. Abai answers, there's no contradiction here. In our Mishnah, the case over here of the Tzoim Barzel is, you accept it upon yourself. Any aynus that happens, that you're going to return it. And even if the value just goes down, you're also going to reimburse him the original value. So in such a case, you're a borrower, because you're reimbursing him everything. So therefore, if there's profit that the owner is gaining besides you returning everything of the value of the principle itself, that's ribis. Over here in the Mishnah of B'chayres, the like Kabbalah on Sevizula, you're getting these animals from the guy, and you're working for him with them, but you never accepted upon yourself any inus or any, if the value goes down, you didn't accept upon yourself that loss that you would return to him. So therefore, these animals still belong to the guy. And therefore, if there's b'chayra, you're not obligated. There's no mitzvah of b'chayra if it still belongs to the guy. But the Gemara asks right away on this. Amalei Rava, so Rava asks, either kabbalah lei mara unsa v'zula. If the owner, the guy, is the one that will take the loss for any inus that happens, or if the price goes down. Tzayim barzel kadislei. Why are you referring it to it as tzayim barzel? The whole idea of tzayim barzel is that it's an iron investment, that any loss will be the worker's responsibility. So why are we calling it tzayim barzel? V'oid, another question, if this is called tzayim barzel, adatani sefer, going back here to our Mishnah. In the sefer of our Mishnah, it says a place where it's allowed. That you're allowed to receive this kind of investment of tzayim barzel from a guy. Why does it have to talk about a guy? Live like b'di day. Why can't it make a distinction even regarding this kind of investment by a yid himself? When do I say that this investment is not allowed? When you did not accept upon yourself the unsa v'zula, so then the owner, that is, the mother, this goes back to the original, the owner did not accept upon himself the unsa v'zula, so therefore it's ribis, because this is a loan. It's the investor that accepted upon himself to reimburse fully. That's a loan, so therefore there's the issue of ribis. Kabul mara unsa v'zula. But if the owner does accept it upon himself, so then shaper dami, there's no issue of ribis. That's the distinction the Mishnah should have said. So therefore, the Gemara says, Elo Marove, therefore Rava says, no, that's not the pshat here. Idi v'idi, both our Mishnah and the Mishnah in Bechayris, the loy kablaleh mara unsa v'zula. The owner does not accept upon himself the loss that will happen from a inus, or if the value goes down. The investor accepts that upon himself, and therefore it should be defined as a loan, and therefore there's an issue of ribis. But v'gabe Bechayris, when it comes to Bechayris, hainu tam. This is the reason why the vlades, beturim and abachayra, that the children that are born here will still be pater from bechayra. Why? Because the kivin, the I lo yav zuzi, if this yid will not have the money for the profit that he has to give to the owner, he has to give back half. He has to give back the animal plus half of the profit. If he's not going to have money for it, so the guy is going to come and grab from the animals itself and from any other animals that were born here. He's going to grab it all for himself. If the original behema is not going to be here, he's going to go and grab even from the children, or from one generation, even the next generation of children that are born. He's going to take it all for himself. So if so, there is a hand of a guy, there is still a certain ownership of the guy that's involved here. Anytime you have the hand of a guy that's involved in the ownership of these animals, you potter from chayra. So that's why over here by b'chayra it's different. The emphasis is alone. These animals belong, the vladis that are born over here belong to the yid. And even the original behemoth itself that he got, because it's totally his responsibility to return it to the guy, it's considered to be a loan and it's totally his. But because over here it's possible for the guy to come and confiscate these animals for himself. If you don't have money to pay for him, and even to take from the vladis, there's a certain yad of the guy in the ownership of this, and therefore it's potter from b'chayra.